We are going to pick these notes up where we left off yesterday. Yesterday we were talking about the cumulative frequency, and what that was the amount of tallies that you have in a certain class plus anything that happened before it. So for instance, right now we are on class 110 to 114. The cumulative frequency is 28. That's because there have been 18 tallies in class 110 to 114 plus the 10 tallies prior to that class. So you add those up and you get 28. And again, what I'm doing is I'm adding these numbers, 2, 8, 18, that's 28. You add another 13, you get 41, another 7, you get 48, another one 49, and another one 50. Okay. To go back, I told you don't need the cumulative frequency on every table that you make, on every frequency distribution table that you make, and that is true. You will need it for some graphs, and as you learn these graphs, you will figure out which ones you need it for and which ones you don't. The nice thing is, if you don't put it on right away and realize you need it, it's really easy to go back and just add that column. Here are the three most common graphs that we use. Histogram, frequency polygon, and a cumulative frequency polygon, which we will refer to as the ogive. The histogram is a bar graph that displays data using vertical bars. Now, don't get this mixed up with something called a bar graph, which is usually used for categorical information and characteristics. This is for numbers and measurements. Difference between this one and a bar graph. Bar graphs usually have spaces between each bar. Histograms do not. They are continuous. And for these histograms on the horizontal axis, which is the one that goes left and right, your x-axis, we use the class boundaries. For your vertical, we will be using the frequency. The example we will be looking at or using is the one that the set of numbers that we've been using for the past few examples on the last video. It is example 2-4 on page 51, and it uses the data from example 2-2. So if you want to look at that example, you can get the raw data. But we will start off with the work that we've already done. So here's our grouped frequency distribution table. Everything is set up, everything is done, and we need to turn that data into a histogram. So we will use, I have this already set up, and our class boundaries, remember, are, obviously we want to start at our low, which is 99.5. And then it goes up by 5. And we will need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 classes. The other thing is, not only do you start at your low, your last one should be your highest class boundary. So let me explain that. So we start over here. We're going to need technically 8 little tick marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Starts at 99.5, and then it goes up by 5. So this is 104.5, 109.5, 114.5, 119.5, 124.5. Hopefully yours is neater than this. And finally 134.5. Okay? Frequency. The scale that you use here depends on how many you have. Now our highest is 18. So when I do this, I want to make sure that I don't have to put 18 tick marks. That wouldn't be very fun. So I think a good, I could easily get 6, or I could go by 2s, I could go by 3s, but I think I can easily get 6 of them in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, want to keep them fairly far apart enough where you can tell the difference between, one tick mark and another. So I'm going to start with 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and 18. So here you go. First one, we had a frequency of 2. So where's 2? Right about there. So I draw it from there, and I draw a bar, and I feel like I got too high on that one. So I'm going to erase some of that line. Go back. Draw a line there. My next one was 8. That is about right there. That's where my line will go. Way down. Notice how these classes touch. That's because there's no separation here. My next one is 18, so that one's all the way up. Just take this one and go up, over, oops. Next up, 13. All right there. Next up is 7. All right there. And the last two are 1. Okay. That's definitely higher than this, so I'm okay. Since this was 2, this is 1. Should be good to go. And there is an example of a histogram. That is it. Now you can color these if you wanted. They could be different colors, but that's a histogram. There it is, a little bit neater. What I did mess up on is, even though this is the class boundaries, you should make sure to label what it actually represents. And it represents the temperature in Fahrenheit. So temp in Fahrenheit. Okay. Next up is something called the frequency polygon. And that's a graph that displays the data by using lines that connect points. All right. So now if we use lines that connect points, where do we put these points? You think about it back in here. Do we put the points here, over here? Well, we use it by, we go by the midpoints. So the frequencies are represented by the heights of the points, and then your horizontal is the midpoints.